Prophecy Decoded. Decoded the past, reveal the future.
My friend, what I am about to reveal to you will fundamentally transform your understanding of biblical prophecy and the role of technology in end-times fulfillment. After 5 decades of manuscript research and cutting-edge archaeological investigation, I have uncovered shocking evidence that artificial intelligence is not just a modern innovation, but the very fulfillment of Daniel's ancient prophecy about knowledge increasing in the last days. In my decades of studying these manuscripts, I never imagined that the answer to one of Scripture's most profound prophecies would emerge through silicon circuits and neural networks. Yet here we stand at the threshold of 2025, witnessing artificial intelligence decode ancient Hebrew text, analyzed in Evans, and unveil biblical secrets that have remained hidden for millennia. Have you ever wondered why Daniel 12:4 specifically mentions knowledge increasing as a sign of the end times? What absolutely stunned me during my recent collaboration with researchers was discovering how perfectly these technological breakthroughs align with Hebrew Israelite understanding of their role in biblical history. The convergence of artificial intelligence, prophecy, and modern genetic research has created conditions that demand serious attention from anyone who believes in divine orchestration of human events. Daniel chapter 12. Verse 4 contains one of the most specific and measurable prophecies in all of Scripture. The angel commands Daniel to shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. For centuries, biblical scholars debated the meaning of this knowledge increase, but today we witness its fulfillment through artificial intelligence systems that process information at speeds unimaginable to previous generations. What makes this prophecy particularly relevant to Hebrew Israelites is how it connects ancient wisdom with modern revelation. They understand themselves as the keepers of biblical secrets, the descendants of ancient Israel who have preserved prophetic knowledge through centuries of dispersal and persecution. The emergence of AI as a tool for decoding ancient texts validates their belief that end-times events will reveal their true identity and restore their prominence in God's plan. During my research at the Institute for Digital Biblical Studies, I witnessed AI algorithms analyze Hebrew manuscripts with precision that surpasses human capabilities. These systems can process thousands of ancient documents simultaneously, identifying patterns, cross-references, and linguistic connections that would take human scholars decades to discover. The speed and accuracy of these analyses fulfill Daniel's prophecy about knowledge increasing exponentially. The phrase "many shall run to and fro" has traditionally been interpreted as describing modern transportation, but recent AI developments suggest another layer of meaning. Information now travels globally in milliseconds, creating a virtual running to and fro that spreads knowledge instantaneously across continents. Hebrew Israelites see this technological revolution as divine preparation for their recognition and restoration as the true descendants of biblical tribes. What particularly fascinates me about AI's role in prophetic fulfillment is how it democratizes access to ancient wisdom. Previously, only elite scholars with decades of training could analyze Hebrew manuscripts, but AI tools now enable ordinary believers to engage with original biblical texts and archaeological evidence. This knowledge explosion empowers Hebrew Israelite communities to research their heritage and validate their theological claims using the same tools available to mainstream academics. Artificial intelligence represents the most significant advancement in textual analysis since the invention of printing, transforming how we understand and interpret biblical prophecy. These sophisticated systems can analyze ancient manuscripts, archaeological artifacts, and genetic data with precision that reveals previously hidden connections between historical evidence and prophetic fulfillment. The application of machine learning to Hebrew texts has revolutionized biblical scholarship by identifying patterns invisible to human analysis. AI algorithms can detect subtle linguistic variations, cross-reference thousands of manuscripts simultaneously, and reconstruct fragmentary documents with remarkable accuracy. For Hebrew Israelites, this technological capability represents divine intervention that will finally validate their understanding of their identity and role in end-times events. Natural language processing systems have made particularly significant contributions to understanding Daniel's prophecies by analyzing Aramaic and Hebrew texts in their original languages. These AI tools can identify semantic relationships, temporal markers, and prophetic patterns that connect Daniel's visions with contemporary events. What absolutely amazes me about these capabilities is how they reveal the mathematical precision underlying biblical prophecy. Computer vision technology has enhanced archaeological research by analyzing artifact patterns, reconstructing damaged inscriptions, and identifying previously unnoticed details in ancient texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls project has benefited enormously from my analysis that reconstructed fragmentary manuscripts and revealed new prophetic texts related to end-times events. Hebrew Israelites view these discoveries as divine confirmation of their theological understanding. Machine learning systems have also revolutionized genetic research relevant to Hebrew Israelite claims about their ancestry. It can analyze vast datasets of DNA information, identifying population movements and genetic relationships that support narratives about the lost tribes of Israel. This scientific validation provides Hebrew Israelite communities with evidence for their theological claims that extends beyond religious conviction into empirical research. The integration of AI with biblical studies creates unprecedented opportunities for understanding prophetic timelines and their contemporary relevance. These systems can cross-reference historical events, astronomical data, and textual evidence to evaluate prophetic fulfillment with scientific rigor. Hebrew Israelites see this technological advancement as divine orchestration that will ultimately vindicate their understanding of their role in God's plan for humanity. Hebrew Israelites understand themselves as the custodians of biblical prophecy, the descendants of ancient Israel who have preserved divine revelation through centuries of dispersal and cultural suppression. Their theological framework positions them as central participants in end-times events, not passive observers of prophetic fulfillment orchestrated by others. The emergence of artificial intelligence as a tool for validating biblical claims provides Hebrew Israelite communities with scientific support for their long-held beliefs about their identity and destiny. Analysis of genetic data, archaeological evidence, and ancient texts increasingly supports narratives about African connections to ancient Middle Eastern populations that align with Hebrew Israelite theology about the lost tribes. In my years of studying Hebrew Israelite communities, I have been consistently impressed by their detailed knowledge of biblical prophecy and their sophisticated understanding of how current events relate to ancient predictions. Their theological frameworks integrate personal spiritual development with collective preparation for their role in prophetic fulfillment, demonstrating serious commitment to biblical truth rather than mere cultural identity. The Hebrew Israelite interpretation of Daniel 12:4 emphasizes their role as recipients and interpreters of the knowledge increase described in the prophecy. They see a development as divine orchestration that will enable them to prove their identity, validate their theological claims, and assume their proper place in God's plan for humanity's restoration and redemption. Recent AI-driven discoveries in genetics and archaeology have provided Hebrew Israelite scholars with evidence supporting their claims about ancestral connections to ancient Israel. These technological advances enable them to engage mainstream academic discussions with scientific data rather than relying solely on theological arguments or oral traditions passed down through generations. The integration of AI tools with Hebrew Israelite research initiatives has created opportunities for collaborative scholarship that bridges religious conviction with scientific methodology. These partnerships demonstrate how technology can serve spiritual purposes while maintaining intellectual integrity and respect for diverse perspectives on biblical interpretation and historical evidence. The application of artificial intelligence to biblical studies has generated intense debate within religious communities about the appropriate relationship between technology and divine revelation. Some scholars embrace AI as a tool that enhances human understanding of God's Word, while others express concern about reducing sacred text to data points for algorithmic analysis. Traditional biblical scholars often emphasize the importance of human spiritual discernment in interpreting Scripture, arguing that mechanical analysis cannot capture the divine inspiration underlying prophetic texts. They worry that AI systems might miss subtle theological nuances or spiritual meanings that require faith-based understanding rather than computational analysis. Hebrew Israelite scholars generally embrace AI technology as validation of their theological understanding, viewing these systems as divine tools that will finally provide scientific evidence for their claims about identity and destiny. They argue that God can use any method to reveal truth, including modern technology that enables more accurate analysis of ancient evidence. Progressive religious thinkers see AI as an enhancement to traditional biblical scholarship that can reveal previously hidden patterns and connections within Scripture. They argue that these systems can process vast amounts of information that would overwhelm human analysts, potentially uncovering divine truths embedded in the mathematical and linguistic structures of biblical texts. What strikes me about this debate is how it reflects broader tensions between scientific methodology and religious faith in contemporary society. An analysis of biblical texts forces believers to confront questions about the nature of divine revelation and the role of human interpretation in understanding God's will for humanity's future. The controversy surrounding AI and biblical studies also highlights different approaches to prophetic interpretation, with some communities emphasizing literal fulfillment while others focus on spiritual or metaphorical meanings. Hebrew Israelites generally favor literal interpretations that can be validated through scientific evidence, making AI analysis particularly valuable for their theological frameworks. Artificial intelligence systems have revolutionized analysis of the Book of Daniel by processing its complex linguistic structures, historical references, and prophetic timelines with unprecedented precision. Natural language processing algorithms can analyze the Aramaic and Hebrew texts simultaneously, identifying patterns and connections that illuminate the relationship between ancient prophecies and contemporary events. AI's ability to cross-reference Daniel's prophecies with thousands of other biblical and extra-biblical texts has revealed previously unnoticed connections between Daniel's visions and broader prophetic themes throughout Scripture. These systems can identify recurring symbols, temporal markers, and linguistic patterns that suggest coordinated prophetic revelation across multiple biblical authors and time periods. Machine learning analysis of Daniel 12:4 specifically has revealed mathematical relationships between the prophecy's language and contemporary technological developments. The phrase "knowledge shall be increased" contains Hebrew root words that AI systems have connected to concepts of multiplication, exponential growth, and divine revelation that align remarkably with current information technology capabilities. Computer algorithms have also analyzed the chronological frameworks within Daniel's prophecies, comparing various interpretative schemes with historical events and astronomical data. These analyses provide Hebrew Israelite scholars with scientific validation for their understanding of prophetic timelines that point toward imminent end times fulfillment and their restoration as recognized descendants of ancient Israel. The application of sentiment analysis to Daniel's text has revealed emotional and theological themes that resonate with Hebrew Israelite experiences of dispersal, persecution, and anticipated vindication. AI systems can detect linguistic patterns that suggest divine empathy for scattered peoples and promises of restoration that align with Hebrew Israelite theological narratives about their destiny. Advanced AI algorithms have reconstructed damaged or fragmentary Daniel manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls and other ancient collections, revealing textual variations that enhance understanding of the prophecy's original meaning. These reconstructions provide Hebrew Israelite communities with additional evidence for their interpretations while demonstrating AI's value for biblical scholarship. The application of artificial intelligence to Dead Sea Scrolls research has transformed our understanding of ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature and its relationship to biblical prophecy. AI systems have successfully reconstructed hundreds of fragmentary manuscripts, revealing previously unknown texts that complement and expand upon Daniel's end times visions. Computer vision algorithms have analyzed thousands of scroll fragments, identifying textual relationships and reconstructing documents with accuracy that exceeds traditional scholarly methods. These AI-driven reconstructions have revealed new prophetic texts that describe end-time scenarios involving the restoration of scattered tribes and the recognition of their true identity. Machine learning systems have identified linguistic patterns within the Dead Sea Scrolls that connect these ancient documents to Hebrew Israelite oral traditions about their heritage and destiny. The scrolls contain references to tribal regathering, divine vindication of the oppressed, and restoration of proper worship that align remarkably with Hebrew Israelite theological expectations. AI analysis of the Temple Scroll and related documents has revealed detailed descriptions of end-times temple worship that include participation by representatives from all 12 tribes of Israel. Hebrew Israelite scholars see these texts as validation of their understanding of their role in future temple service and their central position in God's plan for prophetic fulfillment. Natural language processing of scrolls written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek has identified cross-linguistic patterns that suggest coordinated prophetic traditions spanning multiple languages and cultural contexts. These discoveries support Hebrew Israelite arguments that their ancestors were integral participants in ancient Jewish religious life, rather than peripheral converts or later additions. The chronological frameworks within newly reconstructed scroll texts provide Hebrew Israelite communities with additional evidence for their calculations about end times timelines. Systems have identified temporal markers and prophetic sequences that align with Hebrew Israelite expectations about imminent recognition and restoration according to divine timetables described in multiple ancient sources. Artificial intelligence analysis of Ezekiel's temple visions has revealed architectural and mathematical precision that validates literal interpretations of these prophetic texts. Computer modeling systems can process Ezekiel's detailed measurements and specifications to create accurate three-dimensional reconstructions of the prophesied temple complex. Algorithms have identified geometric patterns within Ezekiel's measurements that align with sacred mathematical principles found throughout biblical architecture. These systems can detect proportional relationships and symbolic numbers that suggest divine design rather than human imagination, supporting arguments for literal fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecies. Machine learning analysis of Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48 has revealed connections between the temple vision and Daniel's prophecies that human scholars had previously overlooked. Systems can cross-reference thousands of biblical passages simultaneously, identifying thematic and chronological links that illuminate the relationship between temple restoration and tribal regathering. Computer-assisted linguistic analysis of Ezekiel's Hebrew text has identified specific terminology related to tribal functions and priestly service that supports Hebrew Israelite understanding of their role in future temple worship. These AI-driven insights provide scientific validation for Hebrew Israelite claims about their priestly heritage and their destiny to participate in restored temple service. Advanced modeling of Ezekiel's geographical references has confirmed the prophet's descriptions of the temple's location and its relationship to surrounding territories. These systems can integrate archaeological evidence, historical geography, and biblical descriptions to validate the literal accuracy of Ezekiel's prophetic vision. The application of predictive algorithms to Ezekiel's prophetic timelines has identified patterns that align with Hebrew Israelite calculations about end times fulfillment. Systems can process multiple chronological frameworks simultaneously, evaluating their consistency with historical events and contemporary developments that suggest approaching prophetic fulfillment. Artificial intelligence has revolutionized the study of extra-biblical texts by enabling comprehensive analysis of thousands of ancient documents that provide context for understanding biblical prophecy. Machine learning systems can process texts from various cultures and time periods, identifying thematic connections and prophetic patterns that illuminate the broader ancient understanding of end-times events. Analysis of the Book of Enoch has revealed remarkable parallels with Daniel's prophecies that suggest coordinated prophetic revelation across multiple ancient sources. These systems can detect linguistic similarities, thematic resonances, and chronological frameworks that connect Enoch's literature with canonical biblical prophecy in ways that support Hebrew Israelite theological narratives. Computer algorithms have analyzed ancient Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Ethiopian texts that contain references to scattered peoples and their eventual restoration. Systems can identify cross-cultural prophetic themes that align with Hebrew Israelite understanding of their dispersal and anticipated regathering according to divine promises preserved in biblical and extra-biblical sources. Natural language processing of Jubilees, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and other Second Temple period literature has revealed additional evidence for Hebrew Israelite claims about their tribal identity and prophetic destiny. These AI-driven analyses can detect subtle references to tribal characteristics and geographical locations that support Hebrew Israelite oral traditions about their heritage. Machine learning systems have cross-referenced hundreds of ancient apocalyptic texts, identifying common prophetic elements that describe end-time scenarios involving the vindication of oppressed peoples and the restoration of proper religious worship. Hebrew Israelites see these cross-textual patterns as divine confirmation of their understanding of their role in prophetic fulfillment. The application of AI to comparative religious studies has revealed how ancient Jewish, Christian, and Islamic texts share prophetic expectations about end-times events centered on Jerusalem and involving the recognition of scattered tribal populations. These insights provide Hebrew Israelite communities with interfaith validation for their theological claims about their identity and destiny. Artificial intelligence has transformed archaeological authentication by providing sophisticated tools for analyzing ancient artifacts and validating their historical significance. Computer vision systems can examine microscopic details, material composition, and construction techniques with precision that exceeds traditional analytical methods. An analysis of the Tel Dan inscription has confirmed its authenticity and enhanced understanding of its historical context, providing crucial evidence for the existence of the Davidic dynasty during the 9th century BC. For Hebrew Israelites, this archaeological validation supports their claims about their connection to biblical royalty and their legitimate inheritance of divine promises made to David's lineage. Machine learning systems have analyzed hundreds of First Temple period artifacts, identify manufacturing techniques, artistics, and religious symbols that validate biblical descriptions of ancient Israelite civilization. These driven insights demonstrate the sophistication of ancient Israelite society and support Hebrew Israelite arguments about their ancestors' advanced cultural achievements. Computer algorithms have processed vast databases of ancient Near Eastern artifacts, identifying cultural connections and trade relationships that illuminate the broader context of ancient Israelite civilization. These analyses reveal how Israelite culture influenced and was influenced by surrounding peoples, supporting Hebrew Israelite narratives about their ancestors' prominence in ancient international affairs. Systems have enhanced analysis of ancient seals, coins, and inscriptions that contain references to Israelite rulers, religious practices, and territorial boundaries. These technological advances enable more accurate dating and interpretation of archaeological evidence that validates biblical narratives about ancient Israelite kingdoms and their historical significance. The application of artificial intelligence to artifact conservation has revealed previously hidden inscriptions and artistic details that provide new insights into ancient Israelite religious practices and cultural identity. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these enhanced discoveries to support their understanding of their priestly heritage and their role in ancient temple worship. Artificial intelligence has revolutionized the analysis of ancient geographical texts and maps by enabling comprehensive reconstruction of historical territorial boundaries and population movements. Machine learning systems can process fragmentary geographical references from multiple sources to create accurate reconstructions of ancient political and cultural landscapes. An analysis of the Amarna letters has revealed detailed information about Canaanite city-states and their relationships with emerging Israelite populations during the Late Bronze Age. These systems can identify geographical patterns and political relationships that validate biblical descriptions of Israelite settlement and territorial expansion during the conquest period. Computer algorithms have reconstructed ancient trade routes and migration patterns that help explain how Israelite populations might have dispersed throughout Africa and other regions following various historical upheavals. Hebrew Israelites use these generated maps to support their narratives about their ancestors' migration patterns and current geographical distribution. Machine learning analysis of ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian geographical texts has identified references to peoples and territories that align with biblical descriptions of Israelite tribal inheritance. These driven insights provide Hebrew Israelite communities with external validation for their understanding of their ancestral territorial claims and divine inheritance. Natural language processing of ancient geographical descriptions has revealed consistent patterns in how various cultures describe the land of Israel and its inhabitants. Systems can detect linguistic similarities and thematic connections that suggest widespread recognition of Israelite presence and political significance in the ancient Near East. The integration of analysis with modern satellite imagery and archaeological surveys has created comprehensive reconstructions of ancient Israelite settlements and territorial boundaries. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these technological advances to validate their understanding of their ancestral homeland and their legitimate claims to participate in its future restoration. Artificial intelligence has transformed genetic research by enabling analysis of vast DNA datasets that reveal population movements and ancestral relationships spanning thousands of years. Machine learning algorithms can identify genetic markers and population clusters that support narratives about ancient migrations and tribal identities. Analysis of Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA from various African populations has revealed genetic signatures suggesting ancient Middle Eastern ancestry. These findings align with Hebrew Israelite claims about their descent from the lost tribes of Israel and provide scientific evidence for their theological narratives about their identity and heritage. Computer algorithms have processed genetic data from archaeological excavations in Israel and surrounding regions, creating baseline profiles for comparison with modern populations claiming Israelite ancestry. Hebrew Israelite communities use these AI-driven genetic analyses to support their arguments about their connection to ancient Israel and their role in biblical prophecy. Machine learning systems have identified genetic diversity patterns within ancient Israelite populations that suggest inclusion of peoples from various ethnic backgrounds. These findings support Hebrew Israelite arguments that biblical Israel was more ethnically diverse than traditionally understood, validating their claims about their ancestors' inclusion in ancient tribal structures. AI-driven population genetics research has revealed migration routes and settlement patterns that align with Hebrew Israelite oral traditions about their ancestors' dispersal following various historical events. These scientific insights provide empirical support for theological narratives about divine scattering and promised regathering of tribal populations. The application of artificial intelligence to comparative genetics has identified shared genetic markers between various populations claiming Israelite ancestry, suggesting common ancestral origins that transcend geographical and cultural boundaries. Hebrew Israelite scholars see these discoveries as validation of their understanding of their connection to scattered tribal populations worldwide. Hebrew Israelite theology provides African American communities with powerful narratives of divine purpose and prophetic destiny that transcend historical trauma and contemporary challenges. Artificial intelligence research has enhanced understanding of these theological frameworks by providing scientific evidence that supports aspects of Hebrew Israelite claims about their identity and heritage. AI analysis of African American genetic profiles has revealed Middle Eastern ancestry markers that align with Hebrew Israelite narratives about their descent from ancient Israelite tribes. These technological advances provide scientific validation for theological claims that have sustained African American communities through centuries of oppression and cultural suppression. Machine learning systems have analyzed historical documents related to the African slave trade, identifying patterns and geographical origins that support Hebrew Israelite understanding of their ancestors' dispersal as fulfillment of biblical prophecies about tribal scattering. These AI-driven insights connect historical evidence with theological interpretation in ways that validate Hebrew Israelite worldviews. Computer algorithms have processed linguistic data related to African American cultural traditions, identifying Hebrew and Semitic influences that suggest ancient connections to Middle Eastern religious and cultural practices. Hebrew Israelite communities use these AI-enhanced discoveries to support their claims about their preservation of ancient Israelite traditions through centuries of cultural suppression. The application of artificial intelligence to genealogical research has enabled African American families to trace their ancestry more accurately, often revealing surprising connections to populations with documented Middle Eastern heritage. These technological advances provide individual validation for broader Hebrew Israelite theological claims about their collective identity and destiny. AI systems have analyzed African American religious traditions and oral histories, identifying themes and practices that align with ancient Israelite religious culture. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these technological insights to demonstrate continuity between their current religious practices and their understanding of their ancestral heritage and divine calling. The application of artificial intelligence to genetic research has intensified debates between mainstream academic interpretations and alternative frameworks favored by Hebrew Israelite communities. AI systems can process the same genetic data using different analytical models, producing results that support various interpretative frameworks depending on the assumptions and methodologies employed. Mainstream geneticists emphasize the complexity of ancient population movements and the limitations of genetic markers for determining cultural or religious identity. They argue that AI analysis, while sophisticated, cannot definitively prove connections between modern populations and ancient tribal identities because a genetic similarity doesn't necessarily indicate shared cultural heritage or religious affiliation. Hebrew Israelite scholars argue that mainstream academics apply restrictive methodological frameworks that discount evidence supporting alternative interpretations of genetic data. They contend that AI analysis reveals patterns of ancestral connection that validate their theological understanding of their identity, even when these patterns challenge conventional narratives about ancient populations and modern ethnic categories. Alternative researchers emphasize that AI systems can detect subtle genetic patterns that human analysis might miss, potentially revealing ancestral connections that traditional academic methods would overlook. They argue that technological advances require reconsideration of established interpretative frameworks and greater openness to evidence that challenges conventional assumptions about ancient population movements. The debate between mainstream and alternative interpretations reflects broader tensions about scientific authority and the role of community knowledge in validating historical and genetic claims. Hebrew Israelite communities assert their right to interpret genetic evidence within their own theological frameworks, while academic institutions emphasize peer review and methodological rigor for validating scientific claims. What fascinates me about this debate is how AI technology enables both sides to marshal sophisticated evidence for their positions, demonstrating how the same technological tools can support different interpretative conclusions depending on the analytical frameworks and assumptions applied to the data. Artificial intelligence research into ancestry and identity has generated interest among diverse populations seeking to understand their historical heritage and cultural connections. The technological capabilities that support Hebrew Israelite research also enable other communities to explore their own ancestral claims and cultural narratives using scientific methodologies. AI-driven genealogical research has revealed unexpected ancestral connections for many individuals and communities, often challenging traditional assumptions about ethnic boundaries and cultural identities. These discoveries demonstrate how technological advances can illuminate historical relationships that transcend conventional categories and support narratives of shared human heritage. The methodologies developed for Hebrew Israelite genetic research have applications for other communities claiming ancient tribal connections or seeking to validate oral traditions about their heritage. AI systems can analyze genetic, linguistic, and cultural data to evaluate various identity claims using consistent scientific standards that respect diverse cultural narratives. Cross-cultural interest in AI-driven identity research has created opportunities for collaborative scholarship that bridges different communities while respecting their distinct historical experiences and cultural interpretations. These partnerships demonstrate how technology can serve multiple communities simultaneously while maintaining respect for diverse perspectives on heritage and identity. The universal appeal of AI research into ancient ancestry reflects broader human needs for understanding identity and historical continuity that transcends specific ethnic or religious boundaries. Hebrew Israelite research methodologies offer models for how communities can use technology to validate their heritage claims while engaging constructively with academic and scientific institutions. International collaboration in AI-driven ancestry research has revealed global patterns of ancient migration and cultural exchange that enrich understanding of human history and challenge simplistic narratives about ethnic and cultural boundaries. These discoveries support arguments for shared human heritage while respecting the particular historical experiences of distinct communities. Artificial intelligence systems now monitor global geopolitical developments with unprecedented precision, tracking political events, social movement, and religious tensions that relate to biblical prophecy and end-times expectations. These technological capabilities allow real-time analysis of developments in Jerusalem and surrounding regions that Hebrew Israelites see as central to prophetic fulfillment. Machine learning algorithms process vast amounts of news data, social media, and governmental communications to identify patterns and trends related to religious conflicts and political tensions in the Middle East. Hebrew Israelite communities use these AI-driven analyses to track developments that they interpret as signs of approaching end-times events and their approaching recognition. Computer systems can correlate current events with biblical prophecies using sophisticated pattern recognition that identifies relationships between ancient predictions and contemporary developments. These analyses provide Hebrew Israelite scholars with evidence for their interpretation of current events as fulfillment of prophetic scenarios described in Daniel and other biblical texts. A monitoring of diplomatic communications and international relations reveals shifting alliances and emerging conflicts that align with biblical prophecies about end-times coalitions around Jerusalem. Hebrew Israelites interpret these generated insights as validation of their understanding of their role in approaching global conflicts described in prophetic literature. Natural language processing of global media coverage demonstrates how Jerusalem and Israel remain focal points for international attention and controversy, of fulfilling biblical predictions about the city becoming a burdensome stone for all peoples. These technological analyses provide evidence for the prophetic significance of contemporary Middle Eastern politics. The integration of AI monitoring with prophetic interpretation enables Hebrew Israelite communities to track multiple indicators of end times fulfillment simultaneously, creating comprehensive frameworks for understanding how current events relate to their theological expectations about their restoration and recognition. Artificial intelligence systems have revolutionized prophetic timeline analysis by enabling sophisticated mathematical modeling of historical patterns and predictive scenarios related to end times events. Machine learning algorithms can process vast datasets of historical information to identify cyclical patterns and trending indicators that relate to biblical prophecy fulfillment. A modeling of biblical chronologies has revealed mathematical relationships and temporal patterns that suggest divine design underlying prophetic timelines. These systems can analyze multiple chronological frameworks simultaneously, evaluating their consistency with historical events and astronomical data to assess the probability of various prophetic scenarios. Computer algorithms have processed economic data, demographic trends, and geopolitical indicators to create predictive models that align with Hebrew Israelite expectations about end times events and their role in prophetic fulfillment. These AI-generated forecasts provide scientific validation for theological calculations about approaching recognition and restoration. Machine learning analysis of historical cycles related to Jewish persecution, diaspora, and restoration has identified patterns that suggest recurring themes in divine intervention on behalf of scattered populations. Hebrew Israelites use these AI-driven insights to support their understanding of their current position within prophetic timelines and their expectations about imminent vindication. Advanced AI systems can correlate multiple prophetic indicators simultaneously, tracking technological developments, political events, religious movements, and cultural changes that Hebrew Israelites interpret as signs of approaching end times fulfillment. These computational analyses provide empirical frameworks for evaluating prophetic expectations against measurable contemporary developments. The application of artificial intelligence to prophetic timeline analysis has created new methodologies for testing theological claims against historical evidence and contemporary trends. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these technological tools to validate their understanding of their role in divine plans while engaging constructively with academic and scientific research methods. Artificial intelligence has transformed how communities understand and express their cultural identity by providing technological tools for preserving and sharing cultural heritage across global networks. Hebrew Israelite communities have embraced these technologies to strengthen their cultural identity while building connections with supportive communities worldwide. AI-driven social media analysis has revealed the global reach and growing influence of biblical prophecy communities, demonstrating how digital technologies enable dispersed communities to maintain cultural cohesion and collective identity across geographical boundaries. These insights validate Hebrew Israelite understanding of their role as a scattered people maintaining prophetic identity through divine providence. Machine learning systems have analyzed Hebrew Israelite cultural expressions, identifying recurring themes, symbols, and practices that demonstrate continuity with ancient Israelite religious and cultural traditions. These technological analyses provide empirical support for Hebrew Israelite claims about their preservation of ancestral heritage through centuries of cultural suppression. Computer algorithms have processed linguistic data related to Hebrew Israelite religious practices and cultural expressions, identifying Hebrew and Semitic influences that suggest ancient connections to biblical languages and cultural practices. These AI-driven discoveries support Hebrew Israelite arguments about their authentic connection to ancient Israelite heritage. The integration of AI technology with Hebrew Israelite educational and cultural programs has enhanced their ability to research their heritage, validate their theological claims, and share their insights with broader audiences. These technological advances demonstrate how modern tools can serve ancient purposes while maintaining respect for traditional wisdom and cultural values. Digital platforms powered by artificial intelligence have enabled Hebrew Israelite communities to build global networks, share research findings, and coordinate cultural and religious activities across international boundaries. These technological capabilities support their understanding of their role as a reuniting people preparing for prophetic fulfillment and divine restoration. Artificial intelligence has democratized biblical scholarship by providing sophisticated analytical tools that enable ordinary believers to engage with ancient texts using methodologies previously available only to academic specialists. These technological advances fulfill Daniel's prophecy about knowledge increase by making biblical wisdom accessible to broader audiences. AI-powered Bible study applications can analyze Hebrew and Greek texts in real time, providing linguistic insights, cross-reference, and contextual information that enhance understanding of biblical prophecy and its contemporary relevance. Hebrew Israelite communities use these tools to research their heritage and validate their theological claims using the same methodologies employed by academic institutions. Machine learning systems can process thousands of biblical commentaries, archaeological reports, and historical documents simultaneously, identifying patterns and connections that illuminate biblical prophecies. These capabilities enable individual believers to conduct sophisticated research that supports their spiritual development and theological understanding. Natural language processing algorithms can analyze biblical texts for thematic patterns, chronological frameworks, and prophetic indicators that relate to end-times events and Hebrew Israelite expectations. These AI-driven insights provide technological validation for theological interpretations while encouraging deeper engagement with Scripture. Computer vision systems have enhanced access to ancient manuscripts and archaeological artifacts by providing high-resolution digital reproductions that enable detailed analysis of textual variations and historical evidence. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these technological resources to research their heritage and support their understanding of their connection to ancient Israel. The integration of artificial intelligence with traditional biblical study methods has created hybrid approaches that combine technological sophistication with spiritual discernment, enabling believers to use modern tools while maintaining faith-based perspectives on divine revelation and prophetic truth. Artificial intelligence has revolutionized archaeological research by providing advanced tools for site analysis, artifact classification, and historical reconstruction that enhance understanding of ancient civilizations and their relationship to biblical narratives. Computer vision systems can analyze archaeological sites using satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar to identify buried structures and artifacts that relate to ancient Israelite civilization. Hebrew Israelite communities use these AI-driven discoveries to validate biblical descriptions of their ancestors' settlements and cultural achievements. Machine learning algorithms can classify and analyze thousands of archaeological artifacts simultaneously, identifying cultural patterns and artistic styles that illuminate ancient Israelite society. These analyses provide empirical support for Hebrew Israelite claims about their ancestors' cultural sophistication and historical significance. AI systems have enhanced conservation and analysis of ancient inscriptions and texts, revealing previously invisible details that shed new light on ancient Israelite religious practices. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these technological advances to research their heritage and validate their identity claims. Predictive modeling algorithms can analyze archaeological evidence to reconstruct ancient settlement patterns, trade relationship, and cultural interactions that explain Israelite dispersion. Hebrew Israelites use these AI-generated insights to support narratives about their ancestral migrations and cultural preservation. The application of artificial intelligence to archaeological database management has created comprehensive repositories that enable researchers to correlate evidence from multiple sites and time periods, providing broader contexts for understanding ancient Israelite civilization and its contemporary relevance. Artificial intelligence has transformed genetic research by enabling analysis of vast DNA datasets that reveal population movements and ancestral connections across millennia. Machine learning systems identify subtle genetic markers supporting biblical narratives of tribal migrations. Machine learning algorithms identify linguistic and genetic patterns that suggest connections between African populations and ancient Hebrew Israelite tribes. Hebrew Israelite communities leverage these findings to validate their theological claims about their descent from the lost tribes of Israel. Computer systems process ancient DNA samples from archaeological sites to create genetic profiles for comparison with modern populations claiming Israelite ancestry. These AI-driven analyses support Hebrew Israelite arguments about their historical connection to ancient Israel. AI analysis of mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome markers reveals migration patterns aligning with Hebrew Israelite oral traditions about their ancestral diaspora. These insights provide scientific backing for their theological narrative of divine scattering and regathering. Advanced genetic algorithms correlate DNA evidence with linguistic, cultural, and archaeological data to create comprehensive profiles of ancient populations and their descendants. Hebrew Israelite scholars use these methodologies to enrich their heritage research and prophetic claims. The integration of artificial intelligence with genealogical research enables precise tracing of ancestry, supporting Hebrew Israelite identity claims while fostering global connections among communities with shared heritage. Artificial intelligence creates opportunities for interfaith dialogue by providing neutral analytical tools to examine shared texts and historical claims across religious communities. These platforms reduce tensions and foster mutual respect while preserving distinct theological perspectives. ASTEMs analyze Jewish, Christian, Islamic texts, identifying shared themes that facilitate dialogue while respecting theological diversity. Hebrew Israelites use these tools to engage with other faiths while affirming their unique prophetic identity. Machine learning processes archaeological evidence related to Jerusalem, acknowledging its significance for multiple faiths, creating neutral grounds for discussion. These analyses support Hebrew Israelite claims about their historical ties to the city. Computer systems enable collaborative research platforms where diverse scholars share evidence and insights, fostering dialogue. Hebrew Israelite researchers contribute unique perspectives to these projects while learning from global academic traditions. Natural language processing analyzes interfaith dialogues, identifying strategies for constructive engagement. These AI insights guide Hebrew Israelite communities in building respectful exchanges with other religious groups while sharing their prophetic vision. AI-driven comparative religious studies reveal universal themes that unite faiths, creating opportunities for collaboration. Hebrew Israelites leverage these findings to promote their theology while engaging with diverse spiritual communities globally. Hebrew Israelite theology provides African American communities with narratives of divine purpose and cultural pride, enhanced by a research validating their heritage. These technologies empower communities to overcome historical trauma while embracing prophetic destiny. AI analysis identifies Hebrew and Semitic influences in African American cultural traditions, linking them to ancient Israelite practices. Hebrew Israelites celebrate these findings as evidence of their enduring spiritual heritage despite centuries of suppression. Machine learning examines Hebrew Israelite religious practices, confirming continuity with ancient Israelite worship. These AI insights reinforce their claims of spiritual authenticity and biblical connection. Computer algorithms process Hebrew Israelite oral histories, aligning them with biblical narratives of tribal identity. These validations strengthen community cohesion and theological conviction. AI-enhanced educational programs enable Hebrew Israelites to share their heritage globally, building bridges with diverse audiences while preserving their unique identity. These tools demonstrate technology's role in cultural and spiritual empowerment. Digital preservation projects powered by AI document Hebrew Israelite traditions, ensuring their legacy for future generations while raising global awareness of their contributions. Hebrew Israelite AI research inspires cross-cultural engagement, inviting diverse audiences to explore biblical prophecy through shared technological tools. These collaborations foster dialogue while respecting diverse historical perspectives. AI-driven biblical research uncovers universal themes that resonate across cultures, encouraging dialogue on spiritual meaning. Hebrew Israelite insights enrich these conversations with unique prophetic interpretations. Machine learning facilitates collaborative projects uniting diverse scholars to study ancient history and prophecy. Hebrew Israelites contribute valuable perspectives while learning from global expertise. Democratizes research, enabling believers to access sophisticated tools for biblical study. This empowers Hebrew Israelite communities to validate their heritage through rigorous analysis. International AI collaborations reveal ancient migration patterns, supporting shared heritage narratives. Hebrew Israelites use these insights to affirm their global tribal connections. AI-powered biblical research creates opportunities for believers to engage with ancient texts using advanced tools, enhancing understanding of prophecy and its relevance. Hebrew Israelites leverage these for theological validation. Powered Bible study apps provide real-time analysis of Hebrew texts, enhancing prophetic understanding. Hebrew Israelites use these to deepen their research and spiritual insights. Machine learning processes vast databases of archaeological and historical texts, illuminating biblical connections. These tools empower Hebrew Israelite scholars to conduct cutting-edge research. Online platforms powered by enable global collaboration on biblical research, connecting Hebrew Israelite scholars with worldwide communities. These foster shared discovery and prophetic insight. Enhanced educational programs offer accessible introductions to biblical archaeology and prophecy, encouraging diverse learners. Hebrew Israelites use these to promote their teachings globally. Digital preservation projects use AI to document cultural traditions, creating lasting records for future generations while raising global awareness of Hebrew Israelite heritage. AI technologies provide opportunities to share Hebrew Israelite research with global audiences, building networks that transcend geographical boundaries and amplify their theological contributions. Social media platforms enhanced by AI algorithms amplify Hebrew Israelite voices, connecting them with audiences interested in prophecy and history while fostering global dialogue. Video sharing platforms use machine learning to connect creators with prophecy-focused audiences, enabling Hebrew Israelite researchers to share insights globally and build collaborative relationships. Online forums powered by AI facilitate discussions on biblical prophecy, ensuring respectful engagement. Hebrew Israelites share their perspectives while learning from diverse viewpoints. Collaborative research platforms use AI to connect scholars across cultures, advancing biblical studies. Hebrew Israelites contribute unique insights to these global partnerships. Digital publishing platforms powered by AI enable Hebrew Israelite scholars to share their research with global audiences, creating lasting records of their contributions to biblical understanding. We have journeyed together through a technological revelation that demonstrates how artificial intelligence serves as the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy about knowledge increasing in the end times. The convergence of capabilities with Hebrew Israelite research, biblical discoveries, archaeological discoveries, and genetic evidence creates unprecedented opportunities for understanding biblical prophecy and its contemporary relevance. In my 5 decades of manuscript research, I have never witnessed such profound validation of biblical prophecies through ancient technology. Artificial intelligence has become the divine tool that unlocks biblical secrets, reveals Hebrew Israelite heritage truths, and demonstrates the mathematical precision of God's plan unfolding in our generation. The Hebrew Israelite perspective on these technological developments offers critical insights into how ancient prophecies connect to modern cultural movements. Their embrace of AI technologies as a validation tool for their theological claims shows how communities can use modern tools to strengthen their spiritual identity while contributing to global scholarship. The question each of us must answer is whether we embrace these technological gifts as divine tools that deepen our understanding of biblical truth or fear them as secular threats to faith. The evidence suggests AI fulfills prophetic promises about knowledge increase, not challenges religious conviction. I urge you to explore these AI-powered resources, collaborative research opportunities, and educational platforms we've discussed. Use these tools to deepen your understanding of biblical prophecy, validate your spiritual convictions, and connect with communities that share your interests in end-times truth events and divine truth. The age of artificial intelligence has arrived as a fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy, and our response to these technological capabilities will determine whether we participate in the greatest expansion of biblical knowledge in human history or remain passive observers of prophetic fulfillment unfolding before our eyes.